and why it's important for you as a student to be informed, because agentic AI will mature very strongly in the next 3 to 5 years, and it's very important as a student to keep yourself informed, because you need to be ready for your market when knowing about all these things that are evolving in the industry. And the last thing, right? So, will things end here in 25? No. Things will keep still evolving, which means like how hardware, I mean, back in 90s, people used to store in floppy drives and CD-ROMs. Now, you have hard drives that can actually store TVs and multiple TVs of data in a small drive as well, right? So, hardware, computational power, everything has evolved in the last 20 years. And we will see even more massive evolution happening in the next 20 years, right? So, in the next, I mean, the future, right? It's a prediction. I'm not saying this would happen, but this can happen. Quantum AI is something that will definitely be coming in. So I'm sure most of you must have the subject of quantum physics or physics. So yeah, quantum AI is going to evolve, where you'll be seeing a lot of what do you call it? Lot of transformation happening with the leveraging quantum mechanics and quantum physics. Artificial general intelligence. So artificial general intelligence is nothing but artificial intelligence reaching a maximum state of what a human can do, and even going beyond that. That's what artificial general intelligence means, right? So at one point, it's AI and robots doing the job. Humans, there's no need for humans to do anything, right? And we all don't want that stage, right? So there is a prediction that by 2035 or 40, artificial general intelligence will come into picture, and that's when even human race will evolve in terms of doing the even more smarter things. And we competing with robots and doing all that, right? So it's not a threat, it's just an evolution, and how we need to kind of keep ourselves in. Yeah, so this is just like whatever I covered, right? So basically in this slide, right? So if you see on the first, that's Elisa. That's your first chatbot that was developed in the year 1966. The second one is your Enigma codebreaker, right? So that was used for World War II. And as I said, that's the first ARM robot. Unimate, that was the industrial first ARM robot that was introduced back in 1960s and 70s. And I'm sure most of the industry, supply chain, car manufacturing, all of them use this very actively today. Even more with more hydraulics and all of that, right? And this is your AlphaGo, what you see in the first thing. I think this was the first time where a game called AlphaGo, very similar to checkers or chess game, where it actually beat an actual human, right? So that was a very good deal breaker for people to understand that AI can do a lot of things. So till then it was all about can AI beat human? But that was the first breaker where people understood AI can beat human, right? So that's the reason AlphaGo will always remain in history, because that was the first message given by AI that it can do even more better things than what a human can do. Siri, I'm sure most of you must be knowing, if you have an Apple phone, I think you all know what is Siri. Copilot. So the reason why I added Copilot is all of you must be having laptops, right? So all of you have Windows, right? So Microsoft is doing a lot of things. So I'm sure most of you must, by now, if you're using if you're using Microsoft apps like Word, all of that, you must be seeing a small icon popping up saying M365 Pilot, right? So Microsoft is trying to kind of encourage people using Copilots. I'll try to cover that a little bit in more detail. But yeah, so what we need to take away from this slide is, Elisa was also a chatbot. Copilot is also kind of a chatbot. It's an interactive chatbot. Things have evolved. Like Elisa was like a system, right? You couldn't interact with Elisa, or you couldn't put Elisa into your pocket. Whereas Copilot, Siri, you can put it in your pocket, right? So that's the kind of evolution we are in, right? So now we're able to kind of fit things into a very minimalistic scale, that we're able to kind of achieve things and able to carry that in mobile, and also kind of do complex computations and everything in a laptop, right? So previously you have to do them on supercomputer or go to a dedicated place where computations were achieved. Now you can do that everything in a laptop or even in your personal mobile, right? So that's what we need to kind of take away from this particular slide. Okay, just a minute. Okay, so this is very interesting, right? So I think I've been just speaking about AI evolution and all that, right? But if you see, was AI always on the top? No, sometimes there is a downfall, right? That's what this particular slide refers to, right? So if you look at those sine waves going up and down, That's the reason it's called AI waves and winter cycles, right? What do you mean by winter is, it's like you're at the bottom, right? I mean, you know that it has fallen and you're not able to do much, but you know it will again rise back. That's what winter cycles mean, right? So as you see, the first cycle of AI winter actually happened between 1960s and 70s, right? Foundations were laid, but we didn't have the needed hardware or computations or the need to kind of actually adopt them. That's the reason they went down. And again, in the second phase, it grew up in the 1980s. Again, you had other challenges, economic challenges and all that, and things were not adopted in the right way, right? But if you see the wave that we are all there, right? If you look from 2000, the curve is always going up, which means we didn't still see the winter cycles, right? But is it that we'll never see? Maybe yes, maybe not. But it's very important to know that we are in that upward curve now. Maybe on the top or maybe still going up, right? So it's a very good opportunity for you as a student and also for all of us that we're in such a matured state that things are actually growing and getting even more important. You have companies who want to adopt AI, you have governments who are giving you subsidies to do AI, you have a lot of learning materials that are free of cost and available at your pocket. So people want you to do AI and there is a lot of evolution happening from that particular direction, right? So we are definitely in the cycle where trends are going up, but yeah, definitely there will be a point where probably in the 2030s or 2040s or even before that, we'll also see a downward trend coming in, right? But yeah, early to predict, but yeah, that's when, if you look at the history or if you look at the trend analysis, definitely whenever things go up, there's always a downward trend as well, right? But what is more important as a generation for you and all of us is that we need to reap the opportunities that are there, right? So the opportunity that you have at your hand today in 25 may not be the same thing for the students who are actually pursuing in 2030 or 35. So as students, I think you have to first understand and know what is the generation you're part of, reap the right benefits of your generation and make sure you're able to use that skills rightly when you're market ready tomorrow after your engineering, right? So that's what this slide is just saying about, right? It's not very about what all things are, but it's just about the cycles and the waves that exist. Again, in this slide, I think it's all about, what is interesting is, let's not worry about what is on the top, but if you just focus on the 4 categories that are there in the bottom, right? So, I mean, AI waves are happening, but what is that something that got missed, or what is that something that lacked, right? That's what this particular slide covers. So if you focus on the top 4, right? Perceiving, learning, abstracting and reasoning, right? Perceiving, I'm sure you know, right? You know how to perceive and I mean, as a human, we all are very good in perceiving things, right? We can know about it, we are empathetic, we know how to react, we know how to act. So perceiving is a very unique flavor of a human. Similarly, learning, that's what you're all doing, right? So you have learned, you still have a long way to learn, and we as humans keep learning. So learning is always an evolution for us as a human race. Abstracting, right? So as I covered in my previous slide, right? It's not just about learning. You also have to put things on paper, right? You need to know how you implement it. How do you abstract it? You should know where you need to apply that. That's what abstracting is. And reasoning. It's not that you always be someone who always take things inward, right? You should also know how to probably cross-question and know what things are. So curiosity is something that will help you understand and learn things better, right? So being curious is very important, and that's where reasoning becomes important, right? So you need to have the right reasoning skills. So I just covered them from a human race. Now if you look from an AI lens, right? Back when the first wave, where things were pretty much handcrafted in the first wave of AI, you had a very good perceiving skills, but you lacked learning and abstracting skills. Why learning skills were lacked? Because you didn't have the data. Abstracting, things were not, we were not computationally there to kind of abstract things. Reasoning was there. Surprisingly, the things that were developed back then, like your Enigma coder or the IBM supercomputer, were very good in reasoning. And if you go to the next statistical learning, which is AI Wave 2, it's just a flip of a switch, right? So you could see that perceiving and learning was very good, but things lacked in abstracting and reasoning, right? So that's where we as a generation were in the last 20 years, where you were trying to kind of train things, make the machine learn more and more, but it was not smart enough, right? It was not smart enough to perceive things or probably give back something that's more meaningful to you, right? I'll give an example to you, right? So what is statistical learning is, we all do Google search, right? So when you do a Google search, it's you who decides which page you want to go, right? Google will give you 10,000 results, but as a person who is browsing Google, It's your choice to know what is right and what is wrong, right? Google will not tell you what is right or wrong. That's what his reasoning skills are, or abstracting skills are. Now, whereas if you flip the switch and if you look at today's era of generative AI and all the work that's going on, that's where contextual adaptation has come in, right? So basically, you see that things are very abstractive and reasoning in nature, which means I'm sure most of you must have used ChatGPT here, right? So when you use ChatGPT, you see that you can be very interactive with it, right? I mean, even if you give a typo, it adjusts to it and it understands what you're doing, and it gives you a good amount of information so that you don't decide what is right for you, but rather you can take the help of it to decide what is more important for you, right? Again, it's not that we are in the complete mature state of using ChatGPT and all that. There are some issues that are being still considered from it. We need to use it to the extent to which it's beneficial for us, but over relying on it is again not a thing that I would recommend for. But yeah, one should know how to use them wisely. So that's what the message here is. Okay, so yeah, so this is more of what is traditional AI and generative AI. So I think we'll not go into this much, but basically in traditional AI we used to kind of train specific algorithms to behave in a specific way, right? We used to tell them, can you predict this? Can you know what is the stock market for tomorrow? Can I know what is the best price for this particular thing tomorrow? Or can I know if this particular machine will fail in the next 6 days? So it was more of, traditional AI was more of a probability game, right? So we used to kind of we used to train it on a good amount of data, and in return it used to tell it if it was right or wrong, or will it fail yes or no. So that's what it was, traditional AI was all about. And yeah, I mean, I think I also mentioned the examples, right? So voice assistant like Siri and Alexa are a perfect example of traditional AI. Recommendation engines, right? I'm sure all of you must be looking at OTTs, Netflix, Amazon Prime. So all the recommendations that you get on these particular platforms is also something that is based on traditional AI, right? So they look at your browsing patterns, they know what exactly you need, and it will recommend you what you need for, right? So that's a recommendation thing that falls under traditional AI. And Google search algorithm is something that I already just covered now, right? Now, are things ending there? No. Things are even more evolving in the coming near future, right? We are having things where our imaginations are actually going into a different level, right? So I'm sure most of you must have seen images like, how will it look like when Hyderabad will snow, right? So I'm sure you must have seen in Instagram or some pages where suddenly you see Hyderabad city flooded with water, or a lot of AI videos being created, right? So how is all of that happening? We're able to kind of use a lot of large language models and small language models to come up with such kind of a generation. And today imagination is no more an imagination, but you can also put it into reality, right? But yeah, it has its own adverse effects, but yeah, it's definitely an evolution that we're going across, right? So we are no more restricting or limiting our thought process. We are able to kind of imagine what was just a big, small thought in our brain, but rather we're also able to put it into a picture, right? Okay, so I don't want to spend much time, but yeah, just want to cover on what is traditional AI and generative AI, but you would understand what is more as you kind of mature things. This is just a discrimination of what is traditional AI and generative AI. I don't think we need to spend much time on it. Yeah, so this is important, right? So I just covered about Microsoft Copilot and all that, right? So what is Microsoft doing is, it's trying to kind of give multiple AI agents pushed. Like if you're working, someone who is working on PowerPoints, I'm sure all of you would be using Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, Excel. So previously, if you have to work on Microsoft Excel, you have to learn formulas and remember all that, right? So what Microsoft is doing is, they're trying to kind of make sure that if the Copilot is nothing but an assistant, a personal assistant, right? If you're able to kind of use it, if you know how to use Copilot smartly, you can do things quicker, right? You need not spend ages to build a PPT. You need not use ages to write a formula for an Excel. So that's where Microsoft is actually trying to kind of drive things and make sure innovation stands. And it's trying to kind of make sure that it's not just the businesses who benefit from this Copilots and all that, but it's also the common people like us who use Microsoft products day in, day out in our day-to-day world, right? So that's what this slide is about, right? I don't think we need to spend much time on the other ones, but yeah, it's just, so just a high glimpse is, they have Microsoft Copilot for operating systems. So in case if someone of you are from computer science or IT, I think all of you must be knowing operating systems, and you will definitely learn more about operating systems and what are the different flavors of it in the coming years. If you're someone who is into development side, so again, too early, but if you're someone who is core to go into the IT side and be part of it, that's where writing code is also very easy, right? So if someone who was never a good coder earlier, right? Things have become easier. It's not that you should not code or you're not supposed to code, right? Debugging and things have become even more faster. So with the help of Copilot, you know when to use the right code and what kind of a language and prompts are even more needed, right? And and data and AI, and then browser and search and modern work. So yeah, it's just giving a good glimpse of which all areas are Microsoft Copilot is being used. If you are someone who is interested to use, and someone, I mean, definitely at one point, I mean, a good place to start is nothing but your Microsoft 365, right? So all of you would be using Excel, all of you would be using PowerPoints. So give a try on using Microsoft Copilot. I think it's available free for students in some editions. So yeah, take a look. I'm sure you'll understand what value it's giving to you, right? Okay. Yeah. So this is about it, right? Now, I think all of you must be knowing ChatGPT, right? I mean, do you think it's only ChatGPT that's always there? No, right? So does anyone of you, I mean, I'm already showing on the slide, so I don't think I should ask that question. So ChatGPT, I mean, ChatGPT is something that was introduced by OpenAI. So OpenAI was a company who actually kind of revolutionized how a search should look like. Like they started something called interactive search, right? So as I said earlier, right? Traditional AI was all about manual search. We all go to Google, we search, we get the result, we are like, okay, I got the result. But slowly we are moving into a direction in which search is no more a manual search, right? It's more interactive. You search for something, you get something, you again ask 10 questions, it gives you 10 questions back. You again ask 20 questions. So basically, the information and the knowledge gain that you're getting is actually becoming tenfolds when you're using these interactive chatbots, right? So ChatGPT is one which is given by OpenAI, but you're not just limited to only use ChatGPT OpenAI, right? So there are also other providers of GPTs, right? You have Claude, which is Anthropic. So that's also one popular GPT which is provided, which is also very interactive, and it's available as an app on your mobile. And similarly, there is also Google's Gemini, which is also available. I think Google Gemini is already available in your mobiles in case you are using Android and those things. But yeah, that's also one. Perplexity is a very special one. Perplexity is actually founded by an Indian IIT who passed out in 2016. His name is Arvind Srinivasan. So Perplexity was born, the idea was born in India, but it actually got implemented in the US. So yeah, if you're someone who is interested in using interactive chatbots, I think you should always give a try for using ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and Perplexity, right? And more importantly, does things end there? No. You can also use it for your research and automation, right? So you have something called Notebook LM, right? So basically, writing notes is a big problem, right? So basically, when a professor is giving something, generally we tend to kind of, someone is an avid writer, good. If someone is not an avid writer, you may miss things what is given, right? So Notebook LM actually solves that problem, right? So you need not actually keep writing notes, but rather you can focus on what the professor is saying, and you can keep a note of all the information in a notebook, so that you can actually refer to that in the later stage, right? So this is evolving. It's not come there yet, but there are some schools and colleges which are already using Notebook LM. So basically that's about it, right? So basically AI can be used to kind of make sure that you focus on the right place and you don't do tasks of writing writing notebooks and writing long notes and all that. But yeah, I'm sure you would be getting your as roots say, right? It's always very important to kind of write things to a certain extent, but if things are going for a longer state, that's when you can use them. So it's all about using things wisely. It's not that you should use this, but you should know when to use things and how you can actually make the best value out of it, right? So if a professor is actually giving you an open notebook forum, maybe you should not just go to Google, you should not just go to Gemini or ChatGPT and get the answers, right? Sometimes you're supposed to give some thought to your brain. So some research says that you need to first make your brain work, right? If a professor is actually giving you a case study, sit down, try to put down your perspective. what is that I think about this problem, and then put 10 or 5 lines, and then based on those 10 lines or pointers that you're putting in, then use ChatGPT and all these tools to kind of build your content, right? So it should be used like an assistant to build your content, but not completely replace your brain thinking, right? Else at one point, you will not be able to replicate things in the exam. So that's why it's very important to use it wisely rather than just using ChatGPT and just completing your assignments on that is completely, it's strictly not recommended. Yeah. Yeah, so these are some examples that I just thought of sharing. ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini and something. These are all very good things for your research, and you can always use it to supplement additional to what your professors are teaching you here at Matrusri, right? So it's not that you completely kind of move away and just use ChatGPT. No, because the information that you get that from there is not always straightforward, because all these systems can hallucinate, right? Sometimes they can also misinterpret and also give you wrong information. So it's very important to first absorb the information what your faculty and your teachers are saying, after which if you have anything additional or you want to kind of verify your doubts, or if you want to go in depth into a particular subject, that's when you're supposed to use these particular things for your own personal research. But it's not to completely replace or completely move away from the direction of not even taking anything from the professors or teachers. Right? And does it always stick to teaching and learning? No. If someone of you, I'm sure yours is a generation where there are a lot of content contributors as well, right? Some of you must be having your own Instagram pages, photography, Facebook and all that, right? So that's where creativity and design also is something that's very valuable that's being used very well in AI, right? So Canva Magic Studio is something that actually gives you ready-made templates to kind of do things, right? So if you're someone who is into creativity, creating postcards, creating wedding cards, or creating festival cards, you should try out Canva Magic Studio. It's not free of cost, but yeah, definitely if someone who you are very much interested to know about designing and all that, definitely you should take a look into that, right? And the last one is Copilot for PowerPoint, right? So when you're someone who is coming into PowerPoints, right? I think I already covered this slide for the Copilot, but you no more need to spend ages and ages of time finding the right template for your PowerPoint. Copilot will do it for you, right? You just figure out what content you need to put. But the aesthetics, the design and all that will be taken care by AI, right? So that's where creativity and design as a stream is being evolved very nicely, and definitely it's worth reaping value from there as well. Yeah, so I think content generation, so I think I already covered that, maybe I won't repeat that. You also have, like it's also being used in enterprise AI solutions and also educations and academia as well, right? So like the way I covered about Notebook LM, we also have other partners who are also doing a lot of things on notes, right? So if I am someone who is taking notes from if I'm in a work, I have easy things to take notes, right? So that I can focus on the presentation and the call, and I need not worry about taking long notes for it, right? So there are a lot of innovations happening there. We're not there yet, but yeah, there is definitely room for things to evolve and come into picture. Okay. Yeah. So I think we still have 30 minutes. So, so let's kind of just look at, I think we covered about AI evolution and how things are, right? Now we'll spend some time on what are some use cases and how exactly it's being adopted in the industries, right? So as I said in the start, it's not limited to, it's not limited to one particular sector, right? So AI is something that's used across sectors. So you have a lot of use cases happening in the healthcare industry, which is where we all need, especially with the COVID pandemic and a lot of things changing in the outside world. It's very important to use AI in the healthcare industry, right? And even in finance as well, right? That's where you have a lot of things happening, manufacturing, retail and e-commerce, education, other sectors, right? So all of you are doing your engineering, but at some point you'll deviate and also you'll have your own industry. I mean, every one of you would need to kind of be part of one or the other industry sectors, right? So that is where you'll see all these use cases coming into picture. I don't want to go in depth. I want to focus on this slide and then I'll come back to that, right? Now, since you're all like new to engineering, right? So it's very important to know where AI is actually evolving and what is it for each of your engineering departments, right? So basically, we have mechanical engineering, right? So is it that mechanical doesn't have any AI use cases? No. So you have AI design optimization, you have AI simulation, AI predictive maintenance. So there's a lot of smart work being done on the mechanical side as well for AI, right? So basically you have big companies who are actually investing a lot in AI, right? Whether it's the manufacturing units or whether it's the automobile sectors, they're all going towards smart designing and making sure their productivity increases and they're able to manufacture things better. And yeah, ultimately it's all about making sure you produce more things and you're just making sure you have the right revenue streams coming in. So that's a few examples on where AI is being used in the mechanical engineering sector. In civil engineering as well, you have AI driven design, construction automation and structural risk prediction, right? So in civil, it's not just about constructing things and making sure we have the right balancing and all the weights being adjusted, but it's also about making sure we have the right risk predictions, right? So with Hyderabad's, and also you have a lot of infrastructure is something that will never stop, right? So infrastructure will keep on growing and growing. So I feel that construction automation and structural risk prediction will be some game changers in the coming years because there's a lot of value coming in that particular direction when you leverage the right AI skills. Electrical and electronics. So basically you have signal processing which is being done leveraging AI. You also have a very important problem in electrical and electronics being addressed with the help of fault detection and predictive maintenance. So that's also somewhere one avenue where things are being evolved very much in AI, and it's very important to kind of know where your interests lie and start learning about that particular topic and being informed what's happening in the industry outside. Computer science and engineering, right? So basically you have AI parts, cybersecurity, AI chatbots, something that we discussed, cloud and edge computing, right? So there's a lot of room for edge computing that's kicking in, right? With the kind of market that India operates on, and there's a vast need for what do you call it? There's a vast need for serving the farming and the rural areas, right? So edge computing is actually doing a pretty good job there, right? So we want to kind of build more smart features when it comes to Indian farming and also give more smart devices for the rural areas so that we just don't make sure AI is something that's provided as a capability to the urban areas, but also it's also provided to the rural areas as well. So I would say a good game changing for the computer science engineering is definitely cybersecurity, but also edge computing is something that's also evolving very rapidly in the recent years. Information technology and engineering, I think, network management is very key when it comes to information technology engineering, because any company you go or anything, I think network management is a crucial step that's always being maintained. Cloud computing is something that has definitely taken good shape in the last 10-15 years and will keep evolving as well with the kind of value and the consumption that cloud computing has. And graph networks is something that also tend to put some focus, because with the advent of agentic AI and knowledge graphs that are coming in, graph networks is something that's expected to grow very rapidly in the coming years. So if you are someone who is interested in knowing about that, I would definitely recommend you to kind of research and know what are graph networks and how exactly it will have its role play in the IT sector. Right? And if you're someone who is AI ML specialized engineering, right? So you have autonomous systems and robotics, and more importantly, one good thing about AI ML engineering is you're not someone who is restricted to just one sector, right? So you're a horizontal who can go across any sector that you want. That's the reason I've just called out as AI enablements as a service. So if there is a problem that's being given in a particular domain or a sector, you're not worried about the domain, but you're worried about how you give the right service and capability for that particular domain problem, right? So AI ML specialized engineering is something that I've seen growing in the recent days, though I've not seen the students actually going into the market and everything, because it's just started in the last 2-3 years. But definitely that's an area which many of the industry people are also looking for. And if you are someone who is part of the AI ML engineering stream, I think you have a lot to kind of reap the value from it. This is just finance and banking. What are the use cases? What are some education and learning use cases that we have? So, is it that AI is only being used in sectors? Is it not being used in learning? No. You also have AI in the learning side. You have intelligent tutoring systems. You have automating grade assistants. curriculum planning, learning analytics. This is where even your faculty will be part of it, right? Because that's where even they'll be leveraging some value of AI, and they can make sure they can give you the right things or curriculum that's being given there. But yeah, too early to speak about this, but that is where things are also evolving in the recent days. And as I said, I think I covered sectors, I covered departments basis on where each of your streams are, right? But if you look at an overall where AI use cases are, right? So the top AI use cases are in customer experience, right? Why experience is very important, right? So if you are someone, like experience is something each of us will always experience. So if you're someone who is having an Amazon app, right? You order something and you don't get it, what do you do? You call the delivery, you call Amazon, you say your delivery is not received, you're not happy with the service, right? So basically we live in an era where experience matters, right? I mean, even if you pay 100 rupees or 10,000 rupees, you want the good experience, right? So that's why customer experience is becoming very crucial, and that's where there's a lot of potential for AI to reap the right value from there. Supply chain, I think nothing to say about supply chain. We covered about robotics and all that. Human resources, you learn about it little later, but too early to speak. Fraud detection, that's something where I work. Knowledge creation, research and development. So yeah, I mean, so on and so forth, right? So basically you have a lot of things that you can do, right? So one thing that you need to kind of keep your mind open is you should know firstly what is your engineering touch, whichever department you're part of. What are your subjects that you're learning? How you can infuse AI? What is the skill and how exactly you can learn AI? And make sure how exactly these use cases are being adopted, right? So that's how you should do your mapping in the next 2-3 years. Definitely not right from today, but that will help you develop and shape your thinking of where I need to be in the next 3 years, right? So you need to start that homework. I mean, first year is a very solid foundation to do that, if you ask me, right? Okay. This is just one example on how industry use case for smart grid management, for especially for Triply. But yeah, so it's just saying how energy saving, grid storage, electric vehicles, how everything is being smartly managed with one AI controlling system coming to the picture. Okay. Yeah. So this is academic AI readiness. Now we have spoken about students learning it, students should do this and all that, right? But definitely there is room and avenue for even academia to evolve, right? I don't want to spend much time on this, but yeah, so definitely there is a roadmap and plan for how institutions also can play their role, right? So even colleges and universities are playing their role to kind of be ready for AI, right? So one is making sure AI as a strategy is adopted into mission and goals, right? So that's number one. Faculty and admin development, I think this is where things are already in progress, right? So the faculty are being trained on how to make sure they are ready for AI and they know AI as a subject, and they can teach the next upcoming generation with the right skill sets that they can be ready for. Engagement operations, right? This is more with how you can align with external partners. Like I'm an external partner, right? I've come from industry. So if you keep attending, if you keep listening to people from external industries, you can understand what's happening in the industry, right? So you live in an era where today you should not just focus on what is being taught, what am I knowing here. No. Things are on the other side of the coin, you should also know what's happening in the industry, right? So that's where you'll also see more guest lectures, more people coming in, speaking about AI, speaking about other stuff, so that you know what's happening in the industry, which is very important because that's the core of it. Teaching, learning and assessment strategies, curriculum development as I covered earlier, research and innovation leadership, and the last thing is responsible AI and governance, right? As I said,